Well, okay, I've received numerous requests. One or two of them are actually anatomically possible. And one of the anatomically possible requests is, can I have a look at this David Grusch interview and cast my eye over it and give an opinion? Okay. Personal opinion, of course. And apologies for the dismal production quality as usual. I've just got a camera pointed at the laptop. And Jurassic Park has just started on the big screen. It's got to focus. Okay. Anyway, back to the little screen. Let's have a bit of a listen to this. To save half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is of your life, however long this video is going to be, I don't know yet. I'll cut to the chase and say that I think it's a steaming pile. There is zero tangible evidence that any of this is true. He is relating hearsay. He's not really a whistleblower at all, really, in my opinion. Okay, well, let's have a bit of a look and see what we can see here.
So far, they have not confirmed any of them to constitute proof of alien life.
This is Ross Coulthard. He's talking about Arrow now, the American government, who are maintaining that there is zero evidence of ET craft being recovered and worked on. Zero evidence of ET visiting the Earth.
Officially, the government continues to state, we are.
This, of course, this triangle, the flashing triangle, has been debunked many times. It's an out-of-focus aircraft.
Indeed, alone. But now, for the first time...
No, I don't think we're alone. I think, with the sheer numbers of stars and planets out there, there has to be aliens out there. Chances are some of them are technologically advanced. That doesn't mean they can get here, or that they are coming here.
A former member of that official investigative team is speaking out, telling a stunning story that impacts every person on this planet. And now...
with zero evidence, of course.
You're about to meet that man for the very first time in this exclusive television interview. Welcome. That's it. Maybe start off telling me your name and who you are.
My name is David Grusch. I came from a blue-collar family in Pittsburgh. I didn't have the money for college. Always admired people in uniform, and I've always wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. 18 years ago, I got an Air Force scholarship for physics. I originally commissioned on active duty in the Air Force, served 14 years in the Air Force.
I look at this photograph, Dave, and I see a very proud officer.
I was getting promoted to captain when I was deployed.
And you still love your country, don't you?
Absolutely.
A career intelligence officer, Grusch spent time on the ground in Afghanistan and other places he can't mention before rotating back to Washington.
I was an intel officer for the U.S. for 14 years. My last position, which I left in April of 2023, I co-led the UAP portfolio for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and some of the highest officials within the Department of
he hasn't personally seen any ET material, hasn't handled any ET material, and he was this co-leader of this geospatial UOP project. Now, what does that tell you?
The defense and intelligence community used to call on me to advise them on some of the hardest target sets that the country had.
You are one of the most trusted former intelligence officials in the US defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was.
You were trusted with the most intimate secrets.
Yes.
And he says the most earth-shattering of those secrets were revealed after 2019, when he was invited to join the UAP task force.
You had the security classifications to go anywhere and ask anyone anything.
I had, based on my formal security clearance and multiple polygraphs, I had the ability...
Multiple polygraphs? I mean, what does that mean? How does that qualify you for anything?
To be read into any program that I needed. At one point in time, I was extremely highly cleared.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
He was extremely highly cleared, but he has no personal experience with ET material.
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
Personally, I don't believe that. I mean, why would the American government set up a UAP task force? You know, call it what you will. I think it's called Arrow these days, and then deny them access to any UAP reverse engineering and technological examination programs. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
Be paying all those people. You know, they've got 25 guys on the payroll, and they're not going to give them the information that they've tasked them to look for. You know, that makes no economic sense apart from anything else, does it?
Me.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, you know, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
Yeah, quite a number, yeah. We have spacecraft from another species. Yeah, we do, yeah. I can't provide any evidence of that, but I've been told that we've got these. So, you know, that's why I'm here, to tell you it's all real.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me. They were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
You are alleging that the US government has been concealing the existence on this planet of alien life.
I would couch it as non-human intelligence, you know, NH.
Wriggling a bit here. No, not aliens, they're just non-humans.
Like we like to say in our language.
Why do you say that? Why do you say NHI?
I don't want to necessarily denote origin. I don't think we have all the data to say, oh, they're coming from a certain location, and I couch it as somebody who studied physics where...
Well, if you've got lots and lots of alien spacecraft in a shed somewhere, it's going to have written on the bottom somewhere, made in the Pleiades, isn't it? You know, another quality product from the planet Tharg. Yeah, he's got no idea where these things come from.
Maybe they're coming from a different physical dimension, as described in quantum mechanics. We know there's extra dimensions due to high energy particle collisions, etc. And there's a theoretical framework to explain that. Yeah.
Just let me cut to the quick though.
Yeah, theoretical extra dimensions. Yeah, this is a bit like David Icke. You know, he thinks of it like a radio dial. You know, where you've got these different dimensions and you can tune into them. And there could be other people sitting in your lounge room right now, but because they're in a different dimension, you can't see them. This, of course, is complete and utter nonsense.
You're saying there is an intelligent species engaging with this planet?
Yes, that's potentially extraterrestrial, yeah.
So all these spacecraft that have crashed and they've got in a shed somewhere are coming from one species, are they? These guys must be the worst drivers in the galaxy. Perhaps all the alien bodies they've got are female aliens. They're doing the driving.
I speak for everybody sitting at home. That is a shock.
Sexist, mumbling, sexist. Yeah, sorry about that.
It was to me, and I had a lot of sleepless nights.
Grusch says he's never personally seen non-human intelligence.
By the sound of it, he's not seeing much human intelligence either.
But he's spoken to enough people directly involved in what he calls the program that he's convinced it's real.
I started out as a non-believer. I came to the problem as a hardcore physics guy, intel officer, so I have a, excuse my language, high factor. I was very methodical, interviewing people who didn't know each other, making sure this wasn't some kind of cover-up of some other program.
He says he pressed to gain direct access to this program, and that's when his trouble started. Grusch claims his investigation was stymied, his requests for access rebuffed.
They shut the door in my face. They denied me access to these programs.
Now, what he doesn't say is, he's saying they denied him access to these programs. Is he saying that they are saying that these programs exist, but they denied him access? Or did they actually say to him, we don't know anything about this. As far as we know, there is no such program? That would have been a good question for him, really, wouldn't it?
Soon after, he says, he endured reprisals and retaliation from above. He then reported that information to the Intelligence Community Inspector General. That's why he's filed this whistleblower complaint. He says that experience is why he decided to go public here and in a recent article written by Leslie Kane in The Debrief.
You're not being paid for this interview?
No, I'm not.
Why are you doing this?
It's a sense of service, call me a Boy Scout or whatever. When I saw the kind of wrongdoing I did, I don't want to be 60, 70 years old.
The sort of wrongdoing I did, when I saw the sort of wrongdoing, oh yeah, okay, yep, he saw the wrongdoing, yep.
In the future, and have that, coulda, shoulda, woulda kind of feeling where I could have made a difference. I do not want to live a life of regret.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government.
Well, he's not, is he? He's a civilian. He's not a government representative right now, during this interview. He's a civilian. He's left, isn't he?
Is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
The data points empirically. So what does that mean? You look at the data. There's no evidence as such. You look at the data and you decide that you think that data tells you ET's coming here. So there's no evidence of it. Empirical evidence is you look at something, you decide whether it's ever, whether you believe it or not. And if you believe it, then it's evidence. So that doesn't mean anything at all, really.
You've said that the United States has spacecraft, intact craft.
We do.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well, naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
Have you seen spacecraft?
I've seen some interesting photos and I've read some very interesting reports.
But he says,
he didn't answer the question, though, did he? Have you seen any spacecraft? And the answer to that is no.
the specific documents and photos that would prove his claims are still classified, and he cannot disclose them here.
Let's deal with the issue of your credibility. Why should we believe you? You're just somebody coming out of nowhere, making claims that we really ultimately can't prove.
Yeah. Well, we provide...
And that's the crux of the matter. None of this can be proved. It's all hearsay.
Provided the proof internally to the Inspector General and the Hill staff, who went into all the details. I mean, I have the credentials. I was an intelligence officer on the UAP task force.
But let's face it, allegations of aliens and their spacecraft are hard to accept, even coming from a respected insider. Even if you call them NHI and UAP, how could such NHI travel to it?
So if he's provided evidence to the Inspector General, why is he being denied access to this program if he has evidence of this program? It doesn't make any sense, does it? If he's aware of it and he's got information from the program. So what's he saying? I know this exists. Here's a picture of the Jupiter 2, and I want in. I'm in the UAP task force. Yeah, this is not making a great deal of sense, really, is it?
Earth in the first place and go undetected by the general public. Grusch says the craft may not be travelling through space as we understand it.
It is a well-established fact, at least mathematically and based on empirical observation and analysis, that there most likely are physical additional spatial dimensions. You could imagine in 4 and 5D space where what we experience as linear time ends up being a physical dimension in higher dimensional space where...
Yeah, but from what I understand of this, which is not very much, these theoretical different dimensions do not have sort of three-dimensional physical space like we have. Like you couldn't have one of these dimensions in the middle of the high street and drive a truck through it, for example. So you couldn't. That just wouldn't work. So this is science fiction, really. This is just fluff. It doesn't mean anything.
If you were living there, you could translate across what we perceive as a linear flow.
In science fiction, maybe.
So there is a possibility that, and this is a theory here, I'm not saying this is 100% the case, but it could be that this is not necessarily extraterrestrial, and it's actually coming from a higher dimensional physical space that might be co-located, right here.
What can you tell me about these craft, these technologies? Why do you know it's exotic?
Based on the very specific properties that I was briefed on, isotopic ratios that would have to be engineered for it to be at those levels, but also just extremely strange, heavy atomic metal, high up in the periodic.
Now, this, to me, sticks up a huge red flag. Extremely heavy metals. I don't think you'd find any metal in an alien spacecraft. I certainly don't think you'd find any heavy stuff in an alien spacecraft, because if you wanted to make an interstellar spacecraft, it would have to be you would have to keep the mass as low as possible. We've just started coming across these super materials. We've just come across graphene. Someone's just found out how to make graphene. Graphene is 200 times stronger than steel. It's extremely light. It conducts electricity like copper. It's not metal. It's an ideal aerospace material. I don't think you're going to find anything heavy or metal in an alien spacecraft. I think the technology will be such that, there's going to be all sorts of super exotic, low mass synthetic materials that as yet we can't even imagine. So this is being looked at from a sort of terrestrial science fiction point of view. What would a science fiction fan think might be in an alien spacecraft? Well, metal, unusual isotopes. This, I think, is a red flag, and I think this is nonsense, personally.
Table arrangements that we don't understand, what the emergent properties are, but there's just a very strange mix of elements.
So you're absolutely sure that the materials that these craft are made of are clearly not of this Earth?
Yeah, they're sophisticatedly engineered, certainly not by humans.
And while Grusch says the US has gleaned some insight from these materials for military use, so much more could be done if academia and the private sector had access.
Well, certainly to get some of these, I don't think these materials exist personally, but certainly getting them out into academia would be the way to do it. You know, get some of the top universities in the world to have a look at it. Get this stuff peer-reviewed. You know, get it out of the realms of science fiction and say, here's some tangible evidence. Let's study it. Let's have a look at it. Yeah, that's absolutely. That's what should be done with it.
Totally nuts that humanity as a whole, especially the U.S. citizenry as a whole, they're not even benefiting from broad research on this to solve propulsion, energy issues.
Now, this is the sort of thing that our mate Kremlin Jones comes out with. You know, if they only disclosed that we're being visited by aliens, we could solve all the power problems around the world in the third world with free energy. You know, we could fly around the galaxy. You know, we could do all this exciting stuff with this alien propulsion. And it's science fiction. You know, there's no such thing as free energy. If aliens are coming here, they're not using free energy. It's twaddle. Science fiction rubbish.
Novel material science that can improve people's quality of life. It's just totally nuts how it's been protected.
Of course, solar panels will do the same thing in the third world. You know, solar batteries, solar panels and lithium batteries. You know, you can run your little mud hut village. You don't need free energy. Well, you're getting free energy from the sun to do it. You know, you've got free energy now. The sort of free energy they're talking about is science fiction. It does not exist.
And inhibits progress.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which...
Now, he may genuinely believe this. He may not necessarily be lying. I mean, there's a lot of UFO fanboys out there. They lap up this UFO nonsense. He may very well be one of them. He may be absolutely convinced this is true.
It's extremely unethical.
That doesn't make it true. What would make it true is tangible evidence. Peer-reviewed, tangible evidence.
Immoral.
Coming up, how long has this been going on?
A lot of the things I was briefed on were very shocking.
So let's start from the very beginning. You say it's a 90-year cover-up.
Just about, yeah.
90 years.
1933 was the first recovery in Europe, in Magenta, Italy. They recovered a partially intact vehicle.
It's long been known.
No, I don't believe that for a minute, because Hitler was very keen on winning the Second World War. Mussolini was allied to the Nazis for the first part of the Second World War. Now, if there was any way they could gain advantage, they would have from any kind of technology, be it alien, be it allied. You know, if any allied equipment fell behind enemy lines, it would be examined, to see if it was technologically worthwhile to duplicate it. And exactly the same would be true for an alien spacecraft. I mean, Hitler was looking at all sorts of things. You had people roaming around all over the planet looking for artifacts like the I can't think of the term now, but looking for mythical objects that might help him. And certainly Mussolini would have said, I've got this thing in a shed somewhere, see what your guys can make of this, because the Nazis had an atomic bomb program. They had some very good physicists looking at all this stuff, and it would have been handed over to them. It would have been taken back to Germany for examination by all the top physicists that were working on the Nazi A-bomb program. So I don't believe this for a minute. It's complete nonsense. They wouldn't wait. They wouldn't sit on it until the end of the war and then give it to America, who was their enemy, who was blowing the crap out of their country. It's just complete and utter nonsense.
That the regime of dictator Benito Mussolini documented numerous UAP during this time. This internal memo from the Italian secret services includes crude drawings of the UAPs.
It's true. It's real.
Yeah, that actually happened. The Italian government moved it to a secure air base in Italy for the rest of kind of the fascist regime until 1944, 1945. And, the Pope Pius XII back-channeled that.
So the Vatican was involved.
Yeah, and told the Americans what the Italians had, and we ended up scooping it.
So let me be very clear about this. You're saying that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, they know about the existence of non-human intelligence on this planet.
Certainly.
Grusch says shortly after the dawn of the atomic age, another major crash recovery took place. You've probably heard of it.
What can you tell me about the Roswell craft?
Fortunately, those details were not approved for me to talk about right now.
This much we know. In 1947, an object...
The old Roswell chestnut, I mean, it's been flogged to death, been debunked to death. It was a mogul balloon string, 650 feet long. People that had seen it said that they hadn't seen anything like it before. They were used to seeing weather balloons, but of course they hadn't seen a number of balloons in a 650-foot string with a lot of equipment attached to it. The guy that ran the mogul program said... he laughed when he read about the saucer recovery thing in the Roswell Bugle, or whatever it was called, because they knew it was mogul balloon number 4 that had come down on that ranch. So this is nonsense.
Crashed in the New Mexico desert near the town of Roswell. The Air Force recovered material described as metallic and rubbery, though the government changed its story as to what it was, calling it a flying disc at first, then a weather or spy balloon.
It just read ridiculous to me that the US Air Force had changed its story.
Yeah, and they added additional elements over time and tried to conflate additional programs to explain some of the events.
What?
Conflate. Is conflate a word?
Why are these things crashing?
Yeah, some are landed, some are crashed, and I think that's an interesting discussion that's come up, as advanced as, we are, as humans, right? Planes crash, cars crash. Just because you're some advanced sentience that has advanced technology doesn't mean some small percentage of I'll use the Air Force term like sorties.
A small percentage of alien spacecraft sorties crash here. Well, that means there is a large percentage of alien spacecraft sorties going on here all the time. I should be able to look out the window and see an alien spacecraft. The sky should be full of alien spacecraft. Commercial aircraft should be dodging these alien spacecraft on a regular basis. It should be all over the news every day of the week. A small percentage of these alien expeditions crash here. I really don't think so.
Meet an unfortunate operational conclusionist, as we might want to say.
Most people would tell you the Roswell incident has been thoroughly debunked.
And I'd be one of them.
In fact, the Air Force published this report in 1994 to put the issue to rest once and for all. Grusch has read it.
That analysis they did was a total hack job, and even anybody with analytical skills, if you read it, you can deduce that they're conflating multiple situations with cross-test.
I'm going to get a dictionary and see if conflating is actually a word.
Dummies and then mogul balloons, and they're just saying that the townsfolk who personally witnessed it were totally imagining things. They concocted that whole report just to disinform.
So the reason for the secrecy exactly is what?
Feudalistic dominance, who can have both asymmetric technology for, it seems like, just fueling the war machine.
Grusch says that through the 50s and 60s, encounters with the NHI continued, as did the cover-up. One incident in 1967, about which multiple Air Force veterans have gone public, involved UAPs tampering with the nuclear missiles at Malmstrom Air Base in Montana.
They saw a craft, appearing to be intelligently controlled, hovered over a nuclear weapons silo and shut down 10 nuclear ICBM missiles.
It certainly looks like...
Now, I think, wasn't there some sort of severe solar storm at the time that was interfering with electrical equipment all over the United States, all over the planet? And wasn't there maintenance work going on at the base at the same time as well? The people that were down in the control room didn't actually see anything at all. They were told by the guards on the surface there was a thing there. You would expect a nuclear missile base to be covered in cameras, closed circuit TV cameras, yet there is not one single image. There is not a video clip of this UFO. Zero evidence.
They want to understand how far we've advanced in our nuclear fizzle kind of technologies at the very least. I mean, it looks like preparatory probing activity. It might be innocent kind of scientific gathering, could be ISR probing.
Meanwhile, Grusch says the crash retrieval program continued. And while he won't reveal where the downed craft are stored, he does say...
Is he saying that he does know where these down craft are and that he's not going to reveal it, or that he doesn't know where these downed craft are supposed to be? Personally, I don't think there's going to be any downed alien craft. You know, I think the technology will be such that you're not going to be able to bring them down. They're not going to be brought down by weather. They're not going to be stupid enough to leave any samples here for us to study, because then, you know, that is helping us get to them and potentially destroy them. I mean, the intelligence they could gather just looking around the world, they would know that we're pretty dangerous. We're a pretty dangerous species. They're not going to want us going to visit them. So I don't believe any of this, to be perfectly honest.
That the people working with the technology have been putting themselves at risk.
You know, a lot of them, you know, were injured looking at some of this stuff. You can imagine the nuclear, radiological, and biological risk.
Biological risk, yes. Nuclear risk, no. If you're looking at it from a sort of terrestrial science fiction thing, then maybe you might expect some radiation there. If you actually think about it, you know, the sort of technology that you would need to get here, you know, we're trying to develop fusion power because it's clean nuclear power. It doesn't have radiological side effects. If you've got a starship, it's probably going to have a fusion propulsion system, which means it's not going to have any of this radiological effects. Certainly isn't going to be using fission. So this is old science fiction twaddle.
To looking at an unknown unknown, and a lot of them have literally suffered physically because of their service.
But as we know, anyone who's come forward...
Oh, he has got some evidence. There's a photograph there of a couple of aliens.
Claiming non-human intelligence is behind these incidents has been dismissed as delusional or deliberately deceitful.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
Coming up.
Now, this is the script used by the UFO fanboys. You know, we can't prove what's going on. We're telling you this is happening. We can't prove it because it's all it's all suppressed. It's all secret. You know, and of course, it's very easy to keep something secret when it's not real.
up.
There's 120 knots to the west.
New evidence and perhaps new attitudes in a new age of UAPs.
The American people need and deserve to know more.
Has the US government changed its tune? These are the videos that started it all. Footage captured by naval aviators on military-grade cameras that defied all prosaic explanation. Dave Grusch has investigated this one, shot in 2015 off the East Coast by fighter pilots from the USS Theodore Roosevelt.
There's an industry of debunkers out there on the web who say, oh, they've got this all wrong, it's a jet exhaust at a distance, and the aircraft's turning. Give me an answer on that.
Well, I had some optical engineering experts look at that, and the Raytheon AT FLIR's.
Interestingly enough, it's not an optical image. It's an infrared image, it's not an optical image. Now, if you look at the head-up display, there is no range information. That means the range is not detectable. So it's a very long way away from the camera. So yeah, that's going to be a jet exhaust in the distance.
System based on the pixel saturation and apparent size. It's certainly something that's not a jet. It might be some kind of natural phenomenon. It's quite strange, but it's not as simple as a jet.
He has even stronger opinions about this UAP, now known to history as the Tic Tac, shot in 2004 in the Pacific by aviators off the USS Nimitz.
And the Tic Tac?
Truly anomalous, absolutely technical vehicle, physical, and that's absolutely something that we didn't make.
Not of this world.
Most likely, yeah.
Most likely. So remember the description, you know, when they got there was the roiling under the water, there was something that looked like it was the size of a 737 under the water, and the Tic Tac was hovering just above it. So it's going to be a lighter than air surveillance vehicle that had just been launched from a enemy state submarine to monitor the exercises that were going on at the time. Simple as that.
Videos were leaked in 2017, then officially released by the Pentagon in 2020. At the time, it seemed the Pentagon may have finally abandoned its obsession with secrecy and decided to do what other countries have been doing for decades: establish a properly funded, publicly accountable team to investigate reports of UAP. Dave Grusch was part of that team.
And remember, if you look at the numbers on the head-up display when they show the Tic Tac video, if you use those numbers, you can do a pretty simple calculation using a bit of trigonometry that shows that the Tic Tac was, in fact, at 13,800 feet. It wasn't close to the surface. And it wasn't moving very fast. So it was a lighter-than-air object. I think they were diving on it because they had their heads full of this UFO nonsense. And because they thought it was low and fast, they came across it a lot quicker than they thought they were going to, because it was at 13,800 feet and assumed it was coming up to meet them. Yeah, this is all hogwash.
Hunt mission for what might somebody be doing in our backyard that we don't know about.
The task force set about investigating these incidents, including more recent events like the odd encounters that took place during naval exercises in 2019 off the coast of San Diego. This video, shot on the USS Omaha and later leaked to documentarian Jeremy Corbell, has received particular attention.
It either zooms off so fast you can't see it, or it sinks into the ocean, but it seems to drop.
That to me looks like I don't know. It might be a sunset in infrared.
What do you know about it?
It was truly anomalous.
But Grusch says the promised new age of government transparency is a fallacy. For starters, he says the videos that have been released are just the tip of the iceberg.
There are many videos that are totally fair to release through a declassification process. And I find it very concerning from a transparency perspective that all that the department has declassified were those 3 famous videos. There are more concerning videos that left me with a lot of questions, yeah.
He says there are credible witnesses who could testify to Congress about spacecraft. Big.
Well, witnesses testifying is not tangible evidence, is it? Anybody can, any UFO fanboy can be delusional. They'll say, yeah, I know all about it. I've worked on these things. It's meaningless.
Spacecraft.
A lot of them were very large, yeah. Like a football field kind of size. And I remember interviewing...
So where would you put an alien spacecraft as big as a football field? Do you think anyone's going to notice this coming down somewhere? Did this land? Did it crash? I can't imagine aliens landing something like that and saying, oh, blimey, you got a box of spanners. I just need to open the bonnet and see what's going on here. It's misfiring. It's misfiring on fusion reactor number 3. I've tried kicking it. It usually works, but it's not working today. Or, if it crashed, something like that, the amount of energy that would be in the propulsion system, I think you would notice something like that. Alien spacecraft as big as a football field. Yeah, I would literally have to see that and walk around inside it to believe it.
Doing these personnel, I'm like, either these people are lying to me, they're having a psychotic break, or this is some crazy but true stuff that's happening, and I have no good explanation that's prosaic at all for this. Because
so because he's not seen any of this personally, he's going on what he's been told. Now, I suspect that this is all coming from the same people that it's been coming from for years. People involved with Bigelow Aerospace, TTSA. Excuse me, I've been painting. My neck's a bit painful. Bigelow Aerospace, the TTSA, I can't remember now. But it's the same people over and over and over again. So, they got Lou Elizondo. They fed him full of this nonsense. Because Lou Elizondo has only ever said he believes. He doesn't know. He's never seen any of this stuff. He believes because that's what these same people have told him. They wind him up and they point him in the direction of the media. And then people get bored with Lou Elizondo. They say, oh, Elizondo's got no credibility. All he says is, I can't tell you anything. I've never seen anything, but I believe. New business. Everyone's bored, So, now they've done exactly the same thing with this guy. They've just fed him a load of crap and pointed him at the media.
this is not explainable by, swamp gas, St. Elmo's fire, ball lightning, etc., etc. I mean, this is like tangible technical craft they're seeing up close and personal in some cases when I interview people.
And at the centre of it all, the crash retrieval program the government has never publicly acknowledged. A program, Grusch says, that's included at least one private aerospace company that is storing alien craft.
Yeah, this is going to be Bigelow Aerospace, isn't it? And Bigelow was punting around this this bit of magnesium and bitumen. What was it, bismuth and magnesium or something in layers, and this metamaterial that was it's actually industrial slag from a lead purification process. I can't remember what it's called. I should have looked it up. I've got it on in some notes somewhere. Something Kroll process or something for purifying lead, and he's peddling this around as alien material because it looks odd. But it was analysed and it's terrestrial material. And the other stuff that Bigelow Aerospace is supposedly sitting on, no one else is allowed to see, including Grusch. So personally, I don't think Bigelow Aerospace has any ET material. I don't think the TTSA has any alien material.
Is that true?
That is how a lot of these relationships are. Well, I don't want to name the specific companies and government elements, but overall...
Oh, ATIP, that was the other one. That was a sort of hobby UFO program run by Lou Elizondo.
The government has been the custodian of a lot of this, right? And they'll hand receipt it out to a cleared defense contractor to do some analysis.
This is exactly the same story Philip Corso was peddling, isn't it? Exactly the same story. They're farming out stuff from recovered alien spacecraft to be reverse engineered by different military contractors. It's rubbish.
Which I find highly unethical. You have basically a sole source arrangement, and you allow certain private corporate elements to look at this, develop a potential insight, and then sell it back to the government for profit. And I think that's totally unethical.
The problem you've got is there have been categorical denials from high-level officials in the US government, even presidents, that what you're saying is true.
Unfortunately, some elected officials were not brought in.
Only a few weeks ago, 19th of April, the head of the Pentagon's UAP investigations program, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, told Congress ARROW, that's the Pentagon's UFO investigation body, has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known laws of physics.
While a large number of cases in our holdings remain technically unresolved, this is primarily due to a lack of data associated with those cases.
Was that a lie?
Well, I know Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I've known him for about 8 years. And, I expressed some concerns to Dr. Kirkpatrick about a year ago and told him what I was starting to uncover. And he didn't follow up with me. And he has my phone number. He could have called me. I hope he'll...
Yeah, so basically, he's gone to Dr. Kirkpatrick, who's running ARROW, the team of 25 people that are tasked by the American government for looking into this UFO, UAP, call it what you will, issue. It's not specifically looking for alien spacecraft, remember? Its primary focus is adversarial technology, and Dr. Kirkpatrick actually said he believes the Chinese may well be ahead, so they may have some sort of reasonably exotic stuff. He certainly suspects that, is the impression that I get. Now, so this guy Grusch is obviously an outsider, isn't he? He's if he was attached to the UAP task force, he's gone to his boss, Dr. Kirkpatrick, and said, look, I've been told by the usual suspects, probably Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff and Lou Elizondo, that Chris Mellon, that all this is real and it's happening, and it's all being kept a secret from you. And Dr. Kirkpatrick has probably gone, here we go. Yeah, right. And he may have made some phone calls behind the scenes and said, what do you think of this guy? He's telling me all this is going on, and they've said, it's just another nutcase. Don't worry about it. It's not real. It's not happening. If we had any material, your team would be the people looking at it. And he's just dismissed him as a fantasist or someone that's fallen hook, line and sinker for all this stuff that's been going around for years. The Wilson memo and all this other bloody nonsense.
Ultimately does the right thing. He should be able to make the same investigative discoveries I did. It's totally crazy if he doesn't.
So the implication here is that
Well, perhaps he's looked into it and found it's a lot of science fiction hogwash.
Head of the very body that Congress has ordered to tell the American public the truth about UAPs is possibly misleading the American public. Do you think the American public is being lied to?
Well, they've been lied to over the years, and...
Well, that's not a yes or no answer, is it? Do you think they've been lied to? Well, they've been lied to over the years. But Dr. Kirkpatrick is tasked with looking into the and his team are tasked with looking into the UAP issue. There isn't going to be anything that's denied to them because Congress is spending money on that team to get to the bottom of it and find out what's going on, whose equipment is flying around in American airspace. He's not going to be denied. That team is not going to be denied access to any information, material, or anything else. This is just hogwash. It's the UFO fanboys' way of explaining away how this can all be hidden. You know, it's because it's not real and they can't produce it. It must be hidden. It's got to be suppressed, even from the people that are paid by the government to find it. They're being denied access to it. Have you ever heard anything quite so ludicrous?
I'm hoping that the lies stop.
Coming up, it gets even
Maybe you should shut up then.
scarier. The UFO whistleblower says the NHIs aren't all friendly.
Have human beings been hurt or killed by a non-human intelligence?
And guess who they might be working with?
And we're in a competition with their adversaries to understand this. And it's a multi-decade Cold War that has been under our nose for so long.
This News Nation's Brian Ensign hosts Live Rocks Nation.
So let's get this straight. So the some American secret outfit has got an alien spacecraft as big as a football field. Now they're letting the Russians see it and examine it, but they're not letting Arrow, the team that the government, the American government has set up specifically to look into this, are being denied access to this. But they're letting the Russians have a look.
In the movies, the aliens are often portrayed as peaceful, even cuddling. It would be nice if that were true, but Mr. Grusch says it's not.
The common interpretation from some commentators is that there is a non-human species and it's incredibly benevolently well disposed to the human race.
Yeah, and I think that is the logical fallacy there is because they're advanced, they're kind. We'll never really understand full intent in that because we're not them, whatever them is or are. But I think what appears to be malevolent activity has happened based on not only nuclear site probing activities, witness testimony. I think at least if we look at it through a humanistic lens, it does appear negative, at least to us.
I've been told that there have been attempts to bring down craft, that we've acted offensively against non-human craft.
There have been instances, and there are certain techniques.
Again, he didn't answer the question, did he? There have been instances and there are certain techniques. The worst thing we could possibly do is attack an alien spacecraft. If an alien spacecraft turned up, for it to get here, the technology would be beyond our imagination. It would be pointless us attacking it. You know, the defence systems would be such that we wouldn't be able. It would be like Independence Day. You know, you could fire everything you like at it, and there'd be some sort of protection field around it or something, and you're not going to be able to shoot down an alien spacecraft. And what if you piss the aliens off? What happens then? What happens if they start shooting because you shot first? Maybe that's their rules of engagement. You know, do not fire unless you're fired upon. And someone fires at an alien spacecraft, they're going to get obliterated instantly. You know, it's not. There wouldn't be any. Again, they're looking at it from a sort of science fiction movie point of view. They can't put their head in that space. You know, where they can't imagine the real sort of technology that these people would have. These critters would have. You know, if they can get here, shooting at an alien spacecraft is a seriously bad idea. And he seriously believes that they can shoot at an alien spacecraft and bring it down.
Human beings being hurt or killed by a non-human intelligence?
While I can't get into the specifics because that would reveal certain U.S. classified operations, I was briefed by a few individuals on the program that there were malevolent events like that.
Now I'm scared. People have just heard you say non-humans may well have murdered human beings.
That seems to be the case at one point, yeah.
And
that seems to be the case at one point, yeah, okay. So what's happened there at one point? Is that one incident of an alien, killing a human? What, do they sort of accidentally land their flying saucer on top of someone driving a tractor, maybe? Yeah, I don't believe this. I honestly don't believe this stuff. Not for a minute. So if people have been killed by aliens, why aren't there people on 60 Minutes saying, my Uncle Fred was killed by an alien? I saw him, he was out there, and they landed in his field. He said, you can't park that there. Or if it was in the southwest of England, it would have been, you can't park that there. That's my lower field. And they would have vaporised him. And I've got it on video. Hey, I took this footage with my phone. There you go. It's my Uncle Fred being vaporised by this alien. So, it's hogwash, I think. Personal opinion, drivel.
And there's more. Grusch says the United States is not the only country that's encountered NHI and their technology. He says our geopolitical rivals have their own crash retrieval programs, which they are also secretly exploiting for military purposes.
Yeah, right, but we never ever see any of it, do we? Certainly if Russia has exploited any of it for military purposes, it's not working very well, is it? And we can see this in Ukraine at the moment. The design of their tanks is not very good. The materials that they're made of are not very good. Yeah, that's the bottom line. We're not seeing anything in any of these theatres of war. We never ever see anything spectacularly technological, do we? It's all the same old stuff. It's jet fighter planes. It's rocket-propelled munitions. Tanks, armour rolling across the ground. We never ever see tanks flying through the air, do we? We never see anything that would lead us to believe the technology is so advanced that it's come from somewhere else. This is an old science fiction chestnut, isn't it? This is the sort of stuff that's rolled out by the UFO fanboys all the time. Governments all over the world are back engineering these spacecraft, and they're using it for military advantage. Where? Show me.
We're in a competition with their adversaries to understand this, and it's a multi-decade Cold War that has been under our nose.
And they show us 3 tanks rolling along the ground. Now, if they were hovering, 10 feet above the ground, I'd say, well, yeah, that looks like it might have some sort of anti-gravitic properties here. But they're diesel tanks trundling along the ground.
For so long, and there's no good way to level the playing field and hold other nation states accountable if they're doing unethical or illicit activity as it relates to this subject. And
apologies again for the terrible camera work, the terrible production quality.
I think the obtuse secrecy is actually putting us in a very dangerous position where a country might make a breakthrough. Let's say it's an adversary of ours, and it is so destabilizing.
You say there's been a Cold War behind this.
Yeah, well, all the Americans would have to do is reveal they've got a football field-sized alien spacecraft, isn't it? There would be no point keeping that secret under those circumstances. If the Chinese are working on it and the Russians are working on it, surely the Americans want to say, well, this is what we're working on, and it's much bigger and far more technically advanced than the bucket of crap that you've got. Again, this is making no sense whatsoever, is it?
Seems with Russia and China.
There has been a Cold War against with our peer adversaries, yeah.
Why hasn't Russia...
Well, that's true. It's got nothing to do with extraterrestrials. There's been a Cold War going on with the peer adversaries since the end of the Second World War. This is meaningless drivel.
or China come out and spoken publicly about this?
I think they're in a similar, pickle as us, where it's they understand maybe some of the socioeconomic destabilization factors in their own society.
But if this non-human intelligence is so advanced, and at least some of them are malevolent, why haven't they destroyed us already? Perhaps some fragile yet combustible détente has been reached. Grusch has written an internal document about his discoveries that refers to agreements that risk putting our future in jeopardy.
And it's quite clear that you're talking about agreements between America and non-human intelligences. Have we made agreements with non-human intelligences?
That's the kind of information I really hope national leadership is able to get to the bottom of.
I need to pin you down on this. Are there agreements?
Blimey, Ross Coulthard actually being a little more aggressive. Normally he's really fluffy with these UFO people. I've got to pin you down. He doesn't, though.
It's between non-human intelligences and the American government.
I think that's a question that I would like to know all the details of as well.
We do know of at least one agreement among humans that's worth noting. This 1971 agreement between the US and the USSR on measures to reduce the risk of nuclear war. Whether or not you...
Yeah, that's got nothing to do with ET, though. Certainly, ET would not need to make any kind of agreements with any government on Earth. Their technology would be such that they could come here and do whatever they wanted. No one would be able to stop them. There would be absolutely no advantage to ET coming here and saying hello, landing on the White House lawn, because they're going to get invited in for a cup of tea, cucumber sandwich possibly, and they're going to have the presidential scientific advisors there, and they're going to say, where do you come from? How do you get here? Now, the aliens aren't going to want to answer questions like that, because they're not going to want us to know where they come from. They're certainly not going to want us to know how they got here. Because they can see what's going on around the planet, and they are not going to want us as a species turning up on their bloody doorstep. It's hogwash. This agreement between Russia and the United States about being sure of what they're seeing flying around in the sky before they press the button is perfectly logical. Doesn't mean what they're seeing is ET at all. We've still not seen a shred of tangible evidence of ET.
You believe, Dave Grusch, this document proves the two superpowers were aware that UAP existed, whatever they were.
If you look at Article 3 of that treaty, it talks about unidentified objects near nuclear facilities or interfering with communications. And that is a treaty that...
Well, they probably put that in there because that's what they've been told by people. Okay, well, we'll bung it in there. It can't hurt.
Has been used, from what I understand, to notify each other if there's a concerning event.
And that's a way of saying to the Russians, hey, don't shoot at us. It's not us.
Yeah, that's certainly a concern because of...
Don't shoot at it. It's not us, possibly. But, it'd certainly be no harm having an agreement like that. It sort of makes sense, really, doesn't it? Early radar systems could have been a little bit glitchy. There was an incident, wasn't there, in 1983 where sun reflecting off the top of a cloud was registered by one of the American spy satellites as a nuclear launch. Or was it the other way around? I can't remember. Was it the Russians that saw it? And anyway, it was a natural phenomenon. But this is what it's all about. It's just about making sure before you press the button what you're looking at. Nothing to do with ET.
The secrecy, there is an environment where you could have almost like a false flag, where true non-prosaic UAP situation could be contrived as, you know, a provocation of something from a nation state, and we want to de-escalate that.
If
no one on Earth has the technology to convincingly pull off an alien spacecraft turning up in the sky above your city or, you know, above your HQ. It's just not possible.
this is true, if the stakes are so high, if the fate of the human race is at stake, perhaps it's no surprise to hear Grusch say the US government will do anything to keep these secrets safe.
Can I put it to you that crimes must have been committed?
At the very least, I saw substantiative evidence that white-collar crime was committed.
Someone's ordered an extra couple of packets of Tim Tams, you know, chocolate biscuits, and didn't put it through the books. White-collar crimes. People in business suits selling bits of spacecraft at the golf club.
Being killed to protect the secret.
Based on the people I talked to, that was an ongoing concern. Yeah.
So again, that's based on the people he talked to. You know, he's no evidence of this. He's choosing to believe what he's been told by the people that have been peddling all this hogwash for years.
Fortunately, I've heard some really un-American things I don't want to repeat right now.
So you have a strong suspicion that people have been murdered to protect the secret.
Over the years, yeah.
Coming up, a reality check.
Is it possible that you're deluding yourself?
It's time to put our whistleblower's credibility to the test.
Everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. Mm-hmm. They're going, is this guy for real?
Well, he may think he's for real. You know, he may completely believe what he's saying. This is why, you know, Kremlin Jones the other day was saying, oh, all these, what do you call them now, these body language experts are coming out of the woodwork and looking at this. And it really doesn't matter what body language experts have to say about it. You know, is he lying? Is he telling the truth? He could very well completely believe what he's saying, so they're not going to be able to tell anything for a start. But there's no tangible evidence. He tells us, you know, it's hearsay. What he's saying is hearsay. You don't need to look at his body language. You know, it's none of this can be backed up with any kind of tangible evidence. And until that happens, it's not worth looking at any of it. You know, he's just another UFO fanboy peddling a science fiction story.
Let's talk about what Dave Grusch doesn't have. He doesn't have smoking gun documents or photos. He doesn't have official confirmation of his claims. He's just a guy talking on camera, and a lot of his answers to our most pointed questions sound like this.
Can you comment?
Unfortunately, I cannot.
So who is this guy really?
I don't want fame or fortune. I'm just here.
Lou Elizondo, Mark II.
To provide public leadership on an issue that I uncovered, and I thought it was totally outrageous.
News Nation has confirmed through multiple sources that Dave Grusch is who he says he is.
Beside the point. Public leadership. Okay. Now, this is exactly what Lou Elizondo was saying, wasn't it? He wanted to come out of the Pentagon and lead the public, be a private UFO investigator. Now, that makes no sense whatsoever to me. Now, if I was employed by the government, the Australian government, on a UFO program, UAP program, it would make absolutely no sense for me to resign that position where I had access to all this information, the radar information. You know, we got these massive over-the-horizon radars that detected stealth aircraft, by the way. I thought it was quite funny. When they flew the Night Hawk or the Black Hawk, whatever it was called, around the world to see if anyone could detect it, and the Australian over-the-horizon radar detected it and said, yeah, it was flying this course at this speed at this altitude. Anyway, back to the point. I've actually forgotten where I was going with this now. Oh yeah, so it would make absolutely no sense for me to come out of that kind of job within the government out into the civilian world where I would have absolutely no access to any of that kind of information. Makes no sense at all. It made absolutely no sense when Lou Elizondo said it, and it's making absolutely no sense now that David Grusch is saying it.
An Air Force veteran from Pittsburgh who worked in military intelligence and was part of the UAP task force. Maybe he's just a confident, well-spoken, ex-military intelligence officer who just happens to have lost his mind.
Do you have any kind of mental illness?
Well, he might just be gullible, you know. He might be a bit of a UFO fanboy. You know, people that have been involved in this for many years. You know, like from Bigelow Aerospace, TTSA, ATIP, Lou Elizondo, Eric Davis, feeding him all this crap, and he's choosing to believe it because he knows these people. You know, he worked with Lou Elizondo. I think Lou Elizondo referred to him as a friend and colleague, didn't he? Big red flag there. So he's had his head filled with all this bloody nonsense for years.
No.
Have you ever had a psychosis, a delusion?
No.
Is there anything in your medical history that might be capable of being interpreted as a reason why you might be confabulating, making things up?
No, I'm not a disgruntled employee. I resigned on my own accord because I thought altruistically it's more appropriate to show thought leadership on the outside on this now.
This is exactly the same script that Lou Elizondo ran. I wanted to leave and come out into the public and do this. And it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to do this. And he just said he's not a disgruntled employee, but he put in a complaint, didn't he? So he is disgruntled. He is a disgruntled employee. He might have been asked to resign, you know, because he was giving him a hard time with all this twaddle. Dr. Kirkpatrick might have said, this guy, you know, he's coming out with all this stuff. We've heard it so many times. There's no tangible evidence. It's coming from the same people. Just get him off my team. Get him out of here. Might have been as simple as that.
Because I, hit an impasse within the government to try to right this wrong.
So I've got to be blunt about this.
Yeah.
You're not making this up. This is not a lie.
No, absolutely not.
Because everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. Mm-hmm. They're going, is this guy for real?
I am for real. And I'm sitting here at great personal risk and obvious professional risk by talking to you today.
Well, I don't see how it's a personal risk, because he's everything. He asked the DOPSA, or whatever it's called, the American government's public sort of information clearinghouse, if you like, if he can make this information public. And they've said, yeah, go and do it. Yeah, say what you like. They're not saying that any of it's true. They're probably sitting back with a bucket of popcorn having a bit of a chuckle. And he's certainly not at any professional risk, because he's no longer in the military. And I think I read somewhere, and I could be wrong, that he's retrained as a real estate agent. Now, if you're selling real estate, how is talking about a UFO program or ET program detrimental to selling houses, to selling condos, What do we know about real estate agents? What's a prerequisite for selling real estate? Selling cars, selling second-hand cars. Now, if I was a cynic, I would say the prerequisite for any of those occupations is to have zero integrity. Now, of course, I'm not saying Mr. Grusch here has zero integrity. He may very well believe all this absolute hogwash. But that's what it is. There's no substance to any of this. It's just more UFO fanboy fluff.
You've told us that we really are not alone. Even though you believe what you say is true, you haven't been fed disinformation. It's a common thing in intelligence for governments to
It's probably not disinformation, it's just crap. that these people have been peddling for years because they love all this bloody rubbish.
Lead.
Yeah, I was very sensitive to that fact. Was this some kind of ruse against me? Am I being used in any kind of way? And I took about 4 years being very methodical before I filed my whistleblower complaint to be absolutely certain of these.
There you go. He's disgruntled. He filed his whistleblower complaint. This is not a gruntled individual. He filed a complaint.
Basic facts.
So take me through the process of how you convinced yourself that this is real.
Well, based on the
Another good question from Ross Coulthard. Ross Coulthard is a UFO fanboy. So that's a pretty good question from Mr. Coulthard.
credentialed people that came to me. Some of these subjects provided me sensitive foreign intelligence to read, sensitive program documents and photographs to evaluate, and then described in very specific detail how all this worked. And they were telling me the exact, extremely specific details that it all checked out. Yeah.
You know, the thing I had trouble...
Well, it all checked out. How can he say it all checked out when he hasn't seen any of it? When he hasn't touched any of it? He's never been to this shed where this football field size spacecraft is. How was it checked out exactly?
Trouble with it's the fact that my experience as a journalist is it's very hard for governments to keep secrets. Most things leak. Mm-hmm. Your government leaks like a...
Yeah, well, this is because the examples that they're showing here are real. You know, Edward Snowden put all that information out, and it was real information. And they said it was real information. You know, that's the difference between the UFO stuff. You know, someone will say, "Oh, yeah, you know, you got all this UFO stuff," and the government says, "What UFO stuff?" That's the difference. What the examples they're using here, there was tangible evidence to support what Edward Snowden was saying, and what Julian Assange was saying. Tangible evidence. There is no tangible evidence for any of this ET nonsense.
Civ, why hasn't this leaked?
Well, I've certainly been the recipient of a lot of U.S. government secrets, and I can tell you they've never seen the light of day. That's for sure. And I guess ostensibly this has leaked like a sieve for decades, but it was a very sophisticated disinformation campaign where, you know, they have allowed some of the truth to come out.
Well, it hasn't though, has it? You know, it's been debunked over and over and over again. You know, it's not leaking out at all. You know, how many people have come forward and says there's a football field-sized spacecraft in a shed?
Some of their trade crafts, but they've disenfranchised people. They've stigmatized it. They made it like this total like wacky thing to talk about. So anybody who may come forward with that kind of information is looked like a, you know, total tinfoil hat guy, because it's a perfect amalgamation of disinformation to just make it look crazy.
The best reason to believe Dave Grusch may be this document. Remember that whistleblower complaint he filed? It would seem it hasn't fallen on deaf ears.
So the Inspector General of the Intelligence Services of the United States has the information you've got.
Yes.
And more importantly, the Inspector General made a determination about the credibility of your complaint.
They found, after interviewing myself and the subjects and other subjects that I'm not even cognizant on who they were, they found my complaint urgent and credible for the...
Urgent and credible, okay. Disclosure of urgent concepts. Complaint of reprisal. So what he's saying is that he's told them all this stuff, and because they've got this new law now that protects whistleblowers, he's scared that there'll be some reprisal against him. So, and he's got a complaint of reprisal. So, who's having a go at him? So why? So what's this actually about here? Is this about UFO information, or is this about someone having a go at him? Complaints of reprisal. Okay, so this is definitely a disgruntled guy. Regardless of what he says, this has got disgruntled written all over it, hasn't it?
Intelligence committees.
The word credible is important. You appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's it's a credible complaint of reprisal. It's not a credible. It doesn't necessarily say that the ET stuff is credible. It's a credible complaint of reprisal. They said, yeah, okay, we think that what you're saying is that you're going to suffer because you've come to us with this stuff. Let's have a look at it. That's a valid complaint. Let's have a look at it. We don't know what the result of the complaint is, though, do we? We don't know whether they looked into it and said, well, this is all nonsense, you know. Maybe that's why he's no longer working for them, the actual facts of the matter.
So, an official investigatory body of the United States government has determined that your allegations are credible.
Correct.
Coming up, if it is true.
Allegations of reprisal, that probably is. It's probably not allegations of ET. Allegations of reprisal. So, you know, someone's saying, look, this guy's getting on everybody's nerves with all this bloody flying saucer stuff, you know, making life hard for him because they want him gone. Could be as simple as that.
Then what? What are we going to do if the biggest secret on the planet is now out in the open? And what are they going to do?
How will the non-human intelligence react? This is one of the gravest constitutional crises for your country ever.
Absolutely.
Give me some hope here.
Yeah.
There are good people.
There are very good people, and I want that message to be crystal clear. Let's not demonize holistically the U.S. government. There's a whole army of people that want change. I am one of tens, if not hundreds, of individuals within the government on these programs that would like a change.
What kind of change does David...
So you got all these tens, if not hundreds of people that are working on all this stuff. And he's the only one that's appearing on television talking about it. And they haven't even given him an ashtray, you know, from a Pleiadian mothership to wave around on the television to say, look, you know, it really is true. See, if anybody working on one of these programs went to see 60 Minutes or Ross Coulthard with some tangible evidence, you know, some material from a crashed alien spacecraft, they'd make so much money they could retire. Because they were on 60 Minutes, it's too late. They can't be killed, can they? Because what will be the point? It's out. And you don't want to be seen to be killing people for talking about stuff. It's just not on, is it? So, these hundreds, was it tens, hundreds, or was it hundreds of thousands maybe, people working on this program, not one of them has considered, you know, taking a part of an alien spacecraft to 60 Minutes, Ross Coulthard, any of these journalists that could get it on mainstream television and say, here it is, you doubt it, you analyse it. And see how that unfolds. See whether the government officials turn up and confiscate the piece of it, the piece of material, or whether, you know, like Ross Coulthard's alien ball from Texas, you know, they're just free to analyse it. And of course, Ross Coulthard hasn't told us that the alien ball is no such thing. It's just a plain old ball check valve made in America. He hasn't told us that because he's got books to sell. Gary Nolan hasn't told that. Gary Nolan and Ross Coulthard are both UFO fanboys. It's the same people, same names, over and over again, peddling all this nonsense.
Grusch want? As he said here tonight, he wants the NHI technology to be shared so the rest of the world can benefit from it.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, great.
And I use nuclear weapons or nuclear physics as an example. It's an acknowledged program. We have nuclear weapons. You don't get to know the designs, but nuclear physics holistically is unclassified. Academia studies it. And why would you suppress basic astrophysics, astrobiology, other hard and soft sciences broadly? It's totally nuts.
Yeah, that's right. It wouldn't be suppressed. Exactly. It would not be suppressed. If this material was real, it would be distributed around the best universities in the world for the best scientists in the world to examine. All this technological and biological material. It wouldn't be suppressed. It's nonsense.
Grusch has left the government. He wasn't part of Arrow during the most recent congressional hearings when still more UAP were revealed, including this one captured by a drone in the Middle East in 2022.
There it goes.
His whistleblower case will take months
Mylar balloon
to conclude. In the meantime, he says he's starting a scientific foundation.
Here we go. It's like a lot of the people that are involved in this UFO business. Kevin Day set up this other thing, didn't he, with some other guys, and they're getting lots of money to bob around in a ship off the west coast of America looking for UAPs. Where the Nimitz was exercising. And now this guy wants funding to look into it. He's probably bored with selling real estate already, or he's not selling very much of it, maybe. Yeah, they all end up doing that, don't they? How can we squeeze $1 out of it?
And he's willing to speak to anyone in Washington who has the clearance and the desire to hear the classified information he could not share here.
I make myself available to Secretary Austin, DNI Haynes, who was a recipient of my complaints. I'm happy to further brief elected officials on the specific ecosystem of secrecy down to the fine details.
Whoever they are. How will the non-human intelligence react?
One ashtray from an alien spacecraft would clear all this up, wouldn't it? It wouldn't need to do any of this. It could say, well, here it is. Slap it on the table. Chew on that.
To the revelation that human beings now know they're here.
Yeah, obviously then...
Well, we don't know, do we? We haven't seen a shred of tangible evidence to show ET is here. Show me the tangible evidence and I'd be happy to accept it. But, these science fiction story after science fiction story, and it's the same script over and over again, from Corso, from Elizondo, from this guy, from Tompkinson, wasn't it, with flying U-boats. It's all nonsense.
Non-human intelligences have been around for a while, at least multiple decades in modern history, and they've allowed ourselves to annihilate ourselves, genocide, war, famine, etc. So at the very least, I think they're kind of neutral on what humans decide to do with their free will.
And as for how we, the human race, will react to his story, here Grusch evinces that quintessentially human characteristic: optimism.
I don't have this utopian ideology that this is going to, solve world problems, stop war entirely. But all I want is a moment of pause and to see if the subject unites us, as we've obviously become more divided over the last couple of decades.
Because, if anything else, what you're revealing may mean we all start thinking of ourselves not as American, Australian, Russian, Chinese, but as human.
Yeah, just like Ronald Reagan, eh?
Human family, I think that's totally the right term, yeah.
So the Chinese have got crashed alien spacecraft, the Russians have got crashed alien spacecraft, the Americans have got crashed alien spacecraft, the Brits have probably got one, the French, German, all this sort of stuff. They're not cooperating very well at the moment, though, are they? So it's not going to bring anybody together, is it? Yeah, that in itself tells you it's a lot of crap, doesn't it? It's nonsense. Yeah, anyway, mercifully we're coming towards the end of this. It's pretty hard going, this. It's hard going holding the bloody camera. I'll have to get one of those programs where I can import this sort of stuff, sort of thing that Kremlin Jones uses. make it a bit more professional, but I think this is good enough to get the point across. You know, the picture quality is crap, but mainly it's mainly the audio that you need. Oh, is that it?
Wow. Okay, so now we are going to attempt to process this all.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. So that is it. So that was the end of the David Grusch interview. What do you think? Personally, I think it's a steaming pile. I don't think there's any evidence to show that ET is coming here or has been here, or there's a reverse engineering program. A lot of what he said makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. He's obviously disgruntled. He's got a complaint in there, yet he tells us that he's not. He's completely gruntled. And that, you know, the human race would all come together if only this came out. Yet everybody's got these flying saucers, apparently. Every nation on Earth's got one. And it's not bringing us together, is it? Personally, I'd have to see it to believe it. I would have to be invited along to one of these places and have a wander around inside an alien spacecraft and take a good, long, hard look at it. I'd need to see it doing some stuff that our stuff can't do to be able to believe it. So I know it's not a movie prop. You know, I'd want to see it sort of levitate off the ground, go up vertically, you know, rapidly, disappear, you know, that sort of thing. Something that would convince me it's technologically beyond what we can do at the moment. Okay, well, mercifully that's all over. If you've made it this far through the video, congratulations. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and maybe I'll catch you again.